How to end the cycle of shame after narcissistic abuse, because the real danger isn't the narcissistic abuse. It's actually the shame that it leaves behind, which infects the way you live your life, from your relationships to your relationship with yourself, to your relationship with your body, with money, with having children, with family, with romantic love. Like, it is an infection that affects everything. You're ending the cycle not because of what happened to you, because you refuse to pass it along. So you have to end the cycle of shame. This is part 2 of a 2-part series on shame. That is the first video. I'll pop the link below. And this is the second video of actually how you end the cycle of shame. Narcissistic family systems teach us that shame is used to control from a super, super, super young age. Shame teaches the sensitive child to doubt themselves, to silence their needs, and believe that love must be earned and they don't just get it for being themselves. And that in order to be loved, which is conditional in a narcissistic family system, you have to betray and abandon yourself to be safe, to be loved. And long after the people are even in your life, like they passed away, etc., the shame still stays. That's what happened to me. My dad's been gone for nearly 20 years. And I would say it's very recent, over the last months, that I fully feel free of the shame that I was constant being passed on from him, because he also had been shamed massively during his years where his brain was developing. So therefore, he became somebody that leaked and passed on shame to others. This has been my journey for the last decade, to cut myself free of these dynamics so I wouldn't pass them on to my children, so that I could have a healthy, happy life that wasn't in survival, that wasn't as a victim, that wasn't suffering, but that was free to live my life based on my heart and my soul, feeling emotionally safe in relationships, love for who I am, experiencing unconditional love. But in order to do all of these things, I had to end the cycle of shame that was running in my life, in my body, and also in my relationships externally too. It started with me dissolving layers of shame in order to be able to have the first healthy long-term relationship of my life, which is my now husband, Simon. And then it's been further healing of those layers to remove the shame from my body so that I could have children and have a family. And that's very much a journey that I'm still on, which I'll share stories and videos on that in future episodes. Cycle breakers don't do this work because they're broken. We do it because we love so deeply and we do not want to pass it along, right? When even my children are not here, but the thought of passing this curse along was just not something that I could do. I'd rather not have them, which is why it's taken me till later in life to go on the path of motherhood, because I'd rather not have them, to be honest. I was 37 when I got together with my husband, because I had to do a certain amount of shame work in order to have a healthy relationship. And then I've gone on another part of a healing journey to heal other layers to be a mother as well. And that isn't too much for me. I'd rather that. I'd rather not have them. I'd rather it take longer and for me to do these things in a healthy, soul aligned way, rather than follow trauma patterns and trauma bonds and have shame filled lessons. I've had loads of those as well. And that's the choice. You've got to remember, this is a choice that you're making for yourself and for future generations. And it's incredibly brave and it's incredibly courageous. And it means that that dysfunction truly ends with you. Because shame doesn't just affect you, it affects your relationships, it affects your energetic field, will affect any children that you have. And when we don't deal with it, they have to deal with it, or it will affect and ruin their lives as well. In today's video, we are going to be talking about ending the cycle of shame, from internalized shame, externalized shame, so relationships with others, and how to soothe shame from your body and your emotional body and on all the different layers. Right. Internal shame is pretty simple. That voice of shame that's like telling you you're not good enough, telling you that you're stupid or ugly or incapable, is nasty, is abusive. The way that you speak to yourself, the way that you treat your body, the way that you ignore needs, the way that you betray, the way that you abandon. First of all, you want to become really aware, not judge, have an incredible amount of self-compassion, okay? Because you're not doing these things consciously. These are patterns that you've had your entire life. When I worked on having a healthier relationship with my body, nourishing it, taking care of it, rather than trying to control it or fix it or make it look a certain way so other people liked me and accepted me and all that kind of stuff. When I stopped doing that, I realized how much resistance I actually had to taking care of myself, to showing myself love, to looking at myself in the mirror, to really listening to my needs and noticing, oh, what is it that I truly want? How can I take care of myself? I had so much resistance to that. And you don't want to shame yourself when you're observing, oh my God, I fight looking after myself. You don't want to shame yourself for doing that because we're ending the cycle. So you want to be just really observing, oh, it's interesting that I do that. Like I find it unsafe almost to talk to myself nicely. I feel it unsafe to take care of my body in that way. And just notice it rather than having the dialogue of like nastiness to yourself. Really stepping up as a leader that's observing these inner dialogues and these inner patterns and actually deciding that choosing to stop doing it. What I would do is I would go through my day observing it. At the end of a day, at the end of a week, I would journal about like what I was noticing, patterns I was noticing of how I talked to myself, how I would treat myself, how I was being abusive to myself, how I was putting other people's before myself. I would notice, and each week I would pick something that I was doing, for example, like something silly, like not hydrating myself because I was too busy looking after clients and other people. So next week, I'm going to make sure I hydrate. Like it was just little things like that. Or I would tap myself on my head when I'd be like talking to myself. We don't talk to ourselves like that anymore. It's not okay. We don't talk to ourselves like that anymore. And another way that we really change this relationship within ourselves of shame is looking at younger versions of yourself, pictures, which can be really painful at the beginning because that part of you was isolated, alone, unsafe, and it can feel painful to go back, but to actually witness them and put a picture of yourself on a mirror that you see every single day and really feel like I'm doing it for her or doing it for him. I'm learning to be the parent and the caretaker that that little one needed to myself and noticing all of the ways that it shows up physically, how it shows up mentally, how it shows up emotionally, how it shows up in your nervous system, contraction when you have decided not to do a piece of work and actually have a rest. Really noticing these patterns and supporting your nervous system as you go from the old ways of abandonment and betrayal to love, which is uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar and it can feel really, really unsafe. I have a community called It Ends With Me. This is the work that we do within it. I teach you how to regulate your nervous system as you're going through these experiences, how to process emotions like guilt, shame, anger, fear, how to become the empowered adult, the parent that you truly needed, how to work with your inner child. And you do that in community, in an emotionally safe environment where you can share like a pattern that you're noticing. And then you're like, oh my God, I don't know how to do that. Or you're called out, with love that you're in a bit of a shame cycle there, my love. And, I coach people in that a few times a month. We have a community space. It's such a beautiful space. So if you need support with like the edginess of changing these lifetime patterns, like I genuinely thought this was my personality. Like the level of which I hated myself, the lack of confidence, the lack of self-esteem, all of those things, how shy and quiet I was. I thought that was just full on my personality, but it wasn't. It was a survival pattern. And what we have to do is we have to go back to all of the parts of us that hold the shame and love them. And if you struggle doing that, like talking to yourself, imagining yourself, being present with it, soothing your nervous system so you can be present with it, come and join our community. It ends with me. Just comment community and we will send you the details. It's a monthly membership. We go to gyms, don't we, to work out. We need memberships to take care of our emotional, mental, spiritual well-being so that we can actually break out of these cycles and have a community of support in order to help us do that. The other way that shame shows up is through others. When we are sensitive and intuitive, we can energetically pick up shame as well. So we can feel it, even though somebody is not actually saying, I'm shaming you. But it's like the way that they're looking at you, like you're a piece of dirt. It's the way that you can tell that you're being spoken about. You just know, don't you? Like when it's happening and when you're sensitive, like you can really feel it. Do energy hygiene to take care of that. And like imagining cutting the cords between you, pushing out their energy, like literally saying, I'm going to disconnect to whatever they're thinking or feeling. What somebody thinks or feels about you is actually none of your business. And it's a pattern from childhood to be like, is everybody okay with me? Am I being liked? Are people being horrible about me? Being like that, because it's a pattern from childhood where you had to make sure the adults were okay because you were afraid of being shamed. And you can do that in adult relationships that are friendships, that are work relationships, and all these things. So it's really doing that energetic hygiene. I work with sensitive, empathic cycle breakers all the time, and they don't realize it, but they're using their third eye to tune in to others, to feel into what it is they feel or think about them. And then they're doing something to stop that. And you basically don't really get respect for people when you are basically performing so that they like you. If they don't like you, it's their loss, right? If they don't understand you, if they don't value you, if they don't see you, they're just not your people. But that can feel so unsafe to the body to be like, oh, okay, for so many years, I've been trying to be liked by everyone, and now I'm just going to be okay with just not being liked by everybody. That feels incredibly unsafe. So that's when we have to work with the nervous system, we have to work with the inner child in order to do that. But it's really looking as well, what relationships in your life do you not feel safe, emotionally safe to be yourself? And really being brave to make choices of removing those relationships if you're going to go no contact, having less energy and time with those relationships, making sure that you're not ruminating on relationships all the time, because that's another thing. You can think about what other people think, and that can become a way that you shame. If you're not going no contact, but you're very aware that a particular person, when we come from narcissistic family systems, there's a lot of this going on. And I remember last year, I was around a certain family member that said a number of shameful things. And I just observed it. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, I could actually speak to her about it. And if it was somebody that I saw on a regular basis, then I probably would have done. But I don't see that person particularly a lot ever. And it just made me go, I don't really need to see or hang out with them because that's the way that they view the world. And actually, that's really unsupportive to the person I'm becoming. So I just won't spend a lot of time with them. Like, we don't have like a bad conversation. We've had some messages over the year, but I'm just not going to spend as much energy there because I'm spoken to like that. And, the next time I was observing at that time, but the next time I would definitely be saying it's just not okay to speak to me like that. I was like kind of shocked that particular time because I'm really observing these projections that people are doing. When you have had this treatment done to you so much throughout your life, you're kind of shocked by it and afraid and unsafe, but actually deciding I don't have to be in these people's energies. I can control how much I see them. I can end contact. There's a messy phase within that. We talk about a lot deeper into like people's different circumstances, their different cultures, all this kind of thing of like, how do we take care of ourselves and watch those shame projections when it's like that? Because it's really can be really individual and coming up with like almost like plans of how you can deal in those circumstances. But often it's that the gray rock, like you're not giving that energy, that behavior, like a load of energy. You're just observing it and ignoring it. and like taking care of yourself and not feeding what they want. Like they want to have a fight, for example, but you're not feeding that. You're just observing that, oh, that's really interesting. They're projecting. But what's the difference is you do not absorb it anymore. You're like, okay, well, that was a projection. That has got nothing to do with me. And once you start to notice how much people are doing this, like it's the way that they're actually regulating their emotional body by projecting onto others. And actually, you don't need to absorb that because you were doing that as a kid, but you don't need to do that anymore. It gives you so much power back when you are actually really observant about that and you're really intentional about the relationships that you surround yourself with. When you're sensitive and empathic, the people around you are so important, the circle around you. And what I found breaking free of the narcissistic dynamics that I were part of, that I lost a lot of people and a lot of relationships as part of that. But I got peace basically and happiness and joy and was able to rebuild systems and relationships that are loving and supportive. So it's sad and you experience grief and you experience anger and you experience loneliness, but then you just work to process those emotions. And we do all of that emotional processing at a deep level in community and through teaching you the practices of how to actually let the grief go or let the anger go or let the sadness go. So you are no longer in an emotional loop with it. Something to be really aware of with externalized shame is it's not just our family systems, it's society as well. It's media, it's TV, it's the news, right? It's all these things. You can control how much of your attention you give to those external shameful messages, right? So you can decide that you're not going to go on social media. You can go into something and be fully aware that you're not going to let that message or whatever you're watching to make you feel bad about yourself. We also have for centuries and centuries and centuries, a hierarchy of power that basically shames people. It will shame you for the way that you think. It will shame you for the way that you look. It will shame you for how much money you have. It will shame you for being a woman over a man. It will shame you from color. It will shame you in all kinds of ways. And we're getting those messages all of the time. Take away your power to put you at the bottom of that hierarchy of shame. But when you are fully aware of that and what people are doing to have power over you in the bigger world, politicians and things like that. But it's also in our own family systems that people need those hierarchies to be able to feel powerful and to deal with their own shame. When you start to cut yourself free from that, and you experience reactions from other people because you are no longer playing the shame game. You are no longer playing that I think I'm less than you. You are no longer like the one at the bottom of the rung. You've gone, actually, I'm going to be shoulder to shoulder to you. I'm not going to put you on a pedestal and stay at the bottom because that's what shame does. It means we feel less than others. We go out of our way for other people to win their love and their affection because they're better than us. But actually, it's just a lie because that's just not true. No human is better than another human. We're all human. We came with no shame. That is taught through family, through systems in the world, and it's not real. So when you become aware of that, you can be like, where am I putting my energy and my focus, my attention? Because where am I letting shame leak in from the outside world and tidying those things up? So, like for me, I'm like really intentional about what I am looking at social media. I'm very, very careful. But I love watching a show or something. And then, but I'm mindful of like, what are the shame stories I'm telling myself by watching this show, like about bodies or about love or about relationships, because it's a story, it's a fictional story. I don't need to let it like attack me like inside my inner world, right? So it's really self-leadership. And I also have an emotional mastery guide to really support you when you notice you're coming out of like a centered, feeling really calm and good about yourself, how to work with your emotions. It's completely free. If you comment guide, I will send you the link. Shame always felt so scary to me because I shamed myself so much. But actually, when you start to look at it and you start to stop doing it to yourself, you start to just experience life in such a beautiful way that you've never never ever had before, and you're getting rid of the shame to be able to have the love that you want. When you do this, it raises your vibration. It means that you are vibrating at a higher frequency, which can call in the love and relationships that you want in your life. And that's why it's so important to do. But also, it just means that you're experiencing life in such a healthier, happier way. So, the third thing that I wanted to cover is soothing shame. So, shame is very often a younger version of you that had shame projected on them, and basically letting those parts of you know that they are safe, they are loved, that that is over now. It's using somatic practices to show your body and all of your senses. Imagine your body actually is completely blind to your life is changed and you are no longer being abused. You need to really show your body, all of your senses, that you are not in that environment anymore. So what I used to do is just like lie on the floor and look at like all corners of the room and look out the window and feel the texture of the chair and like really notice that I was a certain age and I was an adult and I was no longer in that environment. That really, really helped. And literally imagining yourself talk to your inner child, and not just your inner child, to the 13-year-old you that was shamed by what her body looked like, the 16-year-old you that was shamed because her results weren't good enough, the 20-year-old you that was shamed by a man for not being beautiful enough. All the parts of you that were shamed, letting them know that that wasn't a fact, that wasn't a truth, that was just that person's pain that they were sort of blurting out on you, and that they are loved and safe, that you are not going to abuse them anymore, you are not going to speak to them badly, that you are no longer going to outsource your safety or your worthiness to others. You're going to give that to yourself. And it's so incredibly healing when you're doing this and like really moving through your life, being very aware of shame and taking care of the parts of you. Also, a lot of you will have a lot of protective things that you do because of the shame, right? So, for example, one thing that I used to do is when I would have a family function, I would go really obsessive about losing weight, because it was like, if I've lost weight, then they're not going to be horrible to me. No one's going to say something nasty, and I'm not going to brace because someone's been horrible to me. And that's protective, right? So when that protective mechanism is jumping in, it's like, hey, sweetheart, you don't need to worry about that. If somebody says something about your weight or the way that you look, I will tell them that you don't appreciate it. Actually, it's not very nice to have those comments, so I'd rather you didn't. So it's like, I don't need you to protect me. Or like, we won't even go to that function. You don't even like going to it. So don't worry about it. I'll say no for you. And it's all those protective strategies that you've been doing for a really long time, like running away from love, like avoiding relationships, like being lonely because it's safer. All these things that you've done that's been protective is to avoid shame. But if you are the leader of yourself and you are not going to betray or abandon yourself, or speak to yourself badly or allow others to speak to you badly, then you don't have to protect yourself. So those things that are stopping you from having the love that you desire, having the money that you desire, all these things can kind of calm down, because you don't need your nervous system to protect you from those things, because you are able to hold them because you no longer hate yourself, right? And that's the beauty of ending this cycle of shame. And if you are trying to create any expansion in your life, whether it's your career or like running a business or having purpose, making more money, having healthier children, or raising the standard of your life so you can have what your ancestors didn't have, you cannot have that with shame. So it's really important to become so self-aware that you notice where it is and starting to dissolve it from your life through the things I've mentioned in this video and in the previous video, which I will link below. A really great practice as well that I just want to end on for soothing shame is noticing when you're in the dilemma triangle, which is abuser, or persecutor, victim or rescuer. So whether you are victimizing yourself, whether you are being horrible to yourself, whether you are like in rescue mode, like fixing yourself kind of mode, or whether you're in empowerment. So you are being the creator of your life and your experiences. You are being the challenger that's like, I've just noticed you've got this pattern. but also being the coach, which is like, you can do this, I really believe in you, and just really changing that internal narrative that will support you to live without shame, which is going to raise your vibration and it's going to make you more magnetic to what you desire in your life. And that really does change the game because it's not a surface level change, because you've really cleaned out the soil of your dreams and the roots are no longer shame filled. And this is the thing I wish I knew when I started this healing journey, that that was the place I should have started, the shedding of that shame, the dissolving of it, the letting it go. And if you need any support at all, come and join our community. It ends with me. We do this work together. You don't have to do it alone. This is for those of you that you are like, I'm all in on breaking this cycle and living a healthy, happy life that's aligned with my soul, not aligned with my trauma. Come and join us, Just Comment community, and I will see you in the next video.